Project Zomboid tells you very clearly when you start a new game, which is often due to various ailments such as death, that this is the story about how you died. Your fate is decided. Which leads us to why this homoerotic naked man is surrendering to me like this. You see, Manuel's salmon had been bitten in our most recent ammo run through Louisville, which is the densest part of the Knox County map insofar as zombie population in general danger. With his bite, his fate is sealed. If he is not put down now, he turns into a zomboid. I want you to beg.
Oh, he's turning.
Now, was it really necessary for me to hit him with the butt of my pistol before sending him to the afterlife? No, but it felt good. Plus, the salmon family at this point are disposable. You see, that was actually the second Manuel salmon. In lore, the two Manuel salmon twins were born to uninspired parents who could think of only one name, instead labeling the kids Manuel 1 and 2. The first Manuel, regrettably, I had accidentally killed by pouring bleach into a pot of stewed lentils when not really paying attention. He then inhaled that whole pot of stewed lentils in one sitting without noticing the bleachy aftertaste, thereafter dying out in the woods alone and afraid. But this doesn't mean it doesn't suck when a salmon does die. The guy is named as such because he's our designated fisherman.
You see, salmon broken down means sal, Latin for salivating, and mon, Flemish for man, salivating man.
Which is what he is, because he stands there fishing all day like a brain-dead mess.
Oh, you think that's harsh? Well, don't, because he's this guy.
Imagine my surprise when in spawned the replacement brother, Automatic Salmon, possessing otherworldly powers such as the ability to rip me through physical objects in the world, and somehow drawing a bullet from my gun to be lodged in his body following a melee attack.
Oh!
There's blood everywhere.
How did you do that? Lodged bullet, what?
Lucky I didn't lodge more bleach in you. Counterintuitive otherworldly power, but okay. There's electricity in the air, however. We just know Automatic is going to be the natural upgrade to Manuel, showcased by how this absolute man machine simultaneously watches 2 televisions loaded up with educational material, while also reading skill books for experience boosts. We call this the Great Education, the equivalent of a Cambridge University postgrad study in the space of 20 real-world minutes. This will get most of his skills from 0 to 4. 7 Seagull, me, not to be confused with hit C-tier movie-making legend Steven Seagal, would sit there for hours working on his near-flawless physique, because 7 never dies, he always survives, and we have no need of the Great Education. You see, we as a unit had survived for so long that we had all the materials we could ever need in the event of loss of life, which is why it didn't hurt so much when I hopped offline that day and received the messages you're now seeing in front of you, about how Automatic had instantly been bitten after I logged out.
So who replaces Automatic? Who is your persona now?
Hello there.
Galactic Salmon. The state of this man. Here's a meal. Now suck them up. Do you think it'll hurt you very much if I run over you?
Not really.
Galactic Salmon surely is amazing. he was just at the bottom of his rep when the car went over and he just held it.
He just pushed the car off him.
He just holds the rep like, I could do this all day. We found ourselves in a rare position for a game such as Project Zomboid, for we lived in a time of plenty and wanted for nothing, except for maybe hottie Z-Mags. You see, we're a house of 2 men living together in a gang called the Sex Boys. We need material, damn it. Anyway, my point is that in a sandbox survival RPG like this one, surviving is both the objective and in some ways the entire journey. Most players don't get to see a base at the end of it, with copious materials preparing you for your newly birthed regen into the world. But when survival has become mundane and effortless, except in the case of the salmons, you have to come up with your own objectives. We'd collected jewelry from the corpses of the zombies we'd slain, which we had stashed in a small backpack in the kitchen, but that ended up too easy. So we endeavored to collect all the booze we possibly could, and with there being a whole distillery only at the northern end of this road, that meant our cupboards and bench tops were crammed with the stuff. Eventually we decided on armaments. Ammunition, which we had stuffed into stacked crates in what used to be the dining room. To some, this isn't a lot of guns, but to us, this is the most we'd ever had and more than we'd ever need. Our guild, to reiterate, the Sex Boys, were armed to the teeth with more ammunition and armaments than we'd ever need. If we'd take any more from the world, we'd arguably be reducing the availability of ammunition for players in need on the server. But the thing is, we don't care. Up until now, we'd only looted the small gun shop in the army surplus on the west side of Louisville, which spawned the mantra, we have every bullet on the west coast, which for all intents and purposes is true. Every time the ammunition respawns, we're drawn in like, I don't know, sex boys to STDs. We're not conservative with our ammo either, with 7 Seagull, not to be confused with his asshole cousin 8 Seagull, sitting on over 3,000 kills. A break away from our usual route up north to the army surplus and gun stores leads us to the nearby prison. Our confidence so overwhelming, despite being in a building designed to keep anything from escaping, that we over-encumber ourselves to the maximum without any fear of repercussion. We laugh in the face of death. I even grabbed the coffee machine. We don't have one of those. Further to this point, my favorite weapon is the double barrel shotgun, simply because once it's fired, the noise is so great that it lures in the largest amount of zombies possible. Every day I wake up and I choose violence. But there's one hole that eludes us, one that many players consider to be the forbidden fruit of the firearms world, and that's the mall at the very northeast corner of the map. The only thing preventing this from happening is we've settled on the opposite end of the city, and being that what separates us from there being the multiple hordes of zombies, we don't hate ourselves enough to make the trip. Also, if we go all the way out there without finding a single hottie Z, we know it's probably all over. However, following an unsuccessful looting run at our usual spots, our craving for ammunition and the forbidden book overwhelms us. So we hatch a plan. If we approach the mall from the northernmost side of the map, with a screwdriver, saw, and hammer, or whatever it takes to break down a door, we can break our way through, and then once inside, we can use our sledgehammer to break down a wall. You see, breaking into these things in this manner sort of masks the break-in point a little, so it's not obvious to all other players. Basically, if a player without a sledgehammer rocks up and has a look and doesn't see an obvious entry, they tend to give up. This gives us a greater chance of basically having all of the loot to ourselves when it respawns. And seeing as everything else has been empty for some time now, we can tell someone has moved in nearby. So we make our way over there, hope in our hearts, and suppress our massive hetero urges on the way, only to find a mall completely burned to the ground. Now, considering this is a server that has never and will never be wiped, this is a huge blow. A huge resource for potentially respawning guns and ammunition has been removed forever, and we think we might know who's done it. God damn Alan.
I bet it was Alan.
Yeah,
Alan did this.
Alan did this. And then left. And never came back.
And then died.
You see, playing on a server for several weeks, you get to know the individuals that play the game. Alan is one such individual to have received legendary status among the sex boys for dying constantly. This man cares so little about everything, even littler than a tiny mouse. Back when we were in Moldra, he was there, took a whole gas station for himself, and he would liberally use molotovs to clear hordes of zombies, often to the detriment of the entire town. And you knew it was him because there was simply so much ash around his base that you would lag on the way through. We suspect that whoever burned them all down was him, but we hadn't seen any real signs of him in the area. And we know there's a small chance that every time a world is made, there are random buildings off the start that are burned down. But surely that's not the case. We couldn't be that unfortunate. For the time being, there's a gun store just down the road from here, so we head on over. And we see it. Alan's signature base. The kind we'd seen in Moldra. This bodes poorly for Louisville and our prospects of getting more stuff. He's even built a sky bridge over and above to the gun store, where he broke in from above. Then tried to seal this part of the store with a television. Did he really think we couldn't vault through this television like the basic, almost two-dimensional game asset it is? Galactic Salmon disassembles the TV. The madman. Not only has Alan burned down the mall, he's also rendered this gun store useless because the game prevents respawning loot in any buildings where custom parts have been placed, such as the sky bridge. For the time being, we loot everything Alan left behind, which appears to be most of it. As for why, who knows? Why would such a man go to these efforts only to allow a C-tier movie director and a salmon man take it all from you? We totally overfill our vehicle with the loot and continue our loop around the remainder of Louisville. Police stations, small gun stores. We loot the lot. We take the lot. We want every bullet on the west coast. It appears Alan has only been here a short time, and we capitalize on his room temperature IQ by taking everything that he hasn't so far. But we know we'll have to deal with him sooner or later. Kinda like a little spider in your room. The longer you leave it, the bigger they get, and big spiders are scary. Right now you might be thinking, but best guest, you're no better than Alan. You're hogging resources, keeping other players from getting them. Well, actually no, you sexually attractive viewer who happens to have a microbrain. We take what respawns. Alan is destroying respawn containers. Alan aside for now, we'd looted every wholesale and retail location as well as police stations in Louisville for guns and ammunition. Sweet, sweet ammunition. And all this loot requires much more storage. I'm not clear on what unit of measurement the encumbrance in Project Zomboid is, whether it's kilograms or pounds, or simply an arbitrary unit to represent encumbrance. But basically we filled up 6 high quality crates and 2 poor crates for a combined value of 440 units, as well as our NT cupboard, which is another 100, and our spaces on the tables for our weapons, which now spill over onto the floor. It's a good thing 7 Seagull suffers from massive OCD, because we sort that shit out right away. Place looks so good. Everything's in order. Everything's sorted. You can get things like from right to left. It's pistols down to rifles. It's awesome. I appreciate you'll be putting that back when you're finished with it. You fuck! Put it back in its spot. Instead of a clump of guns like notoriously unintelligent man Galactic Salmon likes, I sort them by type. The boxes, however, are simply a free-for-all for ammo. If I can't see it, it doesn't bother me and the pain doesn't exist. So why all the toying with the guns and ammo? Well, after every successful haul in this case, after procuring every bullet in Louisville, we would give back to the people. It was doubtful given the server population, but we often do a fairly large sweep around the base to be on the safe side, to not only benefit ourselves, but benefit anyone else in the area as well. Except Alan, because he lived too far away, and we were okay with that. In fact, we had a plan for him of our own. You see, despite being 99% sure he is the one destroying the server like the subhuman molotov slinging monkey he is, we had to be sure. So we write him a note and leave it on the outside of the base, and then continue our sweep.
Oh, that's great. Let's go. No.
Unfortunately, hit C-tier actor Steven Seagal is too fat, and thusly our reflexes are too fat by extension. 7 is based on Steven after all. When I made 7, I made him the burglar class, because Steven absolutely steals a living. The upside to this is I can hotwire cars, which we often do. Oh, also Steven Seagal, if you're a viewer, I'm sorry, I love you honey, but diversify a bit. Why are you always doing ex-Special Forces movie? Do a comedy rom-com for once, you coward. The wound sustained by Galactic Salmon is a laceration, a 30% chance of zombification. As you can see, the man has decided to give up on life. The telltale sign here is that he's wandered off naked into the neighboring property, and then has a mental breakdown and tries to fight me. Why must all the salmon people be like this? As you can imagine, a double-barrel shotgun blast point blank to the chest calms him right down. Calm enough that I can perform surgery to close his wounds, feed him so that he can recover, and with a bit of luck on our side, it will turn out he doesn't have zombification after all. So what are your symptoms like?
Nervous wreck, discomfort, severely depressed, extremely bored, nauseous, hungry, unpleasantly hot. I might have a fever. Do you like my fedora?
Ah, yes, the most enlightened salmon. Surely we can't fail now. But that's the issue. As a team, our survival strategy was perfect. We have pretty much beaten the apocalypse. We have food in the freezer to last us for months, plants in the garden to last us even longer, ammo for days, every bullet in Louisville. I pretend I can count and do an inventory check. Excluding the massive amount of ammunition we'd spent the previous day, we're up massively on our stockpiles. Why we'd want more is simply because it fills us with joy to have what others cannot. But none of it matters. If it were to come down to survival, we would sit on this property forever and never interact with the outside world. Only our desire for Hottie Z keeps us sane, and mass extermination of beings resembling our lost friends and neighbors. Our disdain for Alan, who decided it was wise to use molotovs near the mall, robbing us of our dream of maybe 3% more ammunition than we already had. Something has to be done about him, and it has to be fairly guilt-free. So due to the server rules, we can't and won't be molotoving his base, mostly because that would mean we're no better than him. But we have an even better plan. We can leave something outside of his house that is so loud that it attracts every horde in the area towards it, so the next time he logs in, he's faced with the minor inconvenience of hundreds of zombies. Oh, Jesus, send me to heaven. I've lived a long life in solitude. There've been 4,000 casualties. I've killed so much, yet I've lived so little. I'm ready for all of this to end, Mr. Jesus Salmon.
I'll take you to heaven.
We're jammed, Jesus. See ya.
Hobbling.
Oh no. And now we do it all over again.